is part one of our series on Aristotle. So Metaphysics and Metaphysics by Aristotle. So Metaphysics is a book by Aristotle with which deals with fundamental issues of being, substance, causation, which are super relevant to the CTMU. So in this video we'll explore the first 5 books. It's 14 books long, and see if anything catches our eye as having relevance to the CTMU, and henceforth attempt to elucidate this brilliant work of philosophy with reference to absolute truth. So Aristotle distinguishes between 4 categories of causes: the material, the formal, the efficient, and the telic, or the final. So the efficient is the source of the change, and then the final is the purpose of the change. So this, Aristotle says, the ultimate why is a cause, and Chris Langan agrees with this. He says, at the global level of analysis, the why and the how are the same. And the pre-Platonic philosophers thought that the only causes were of the material sort, a kind of fundamental substance from which all things come to be and to which they all must be resolved. So Thales said this was water, Anaximenes and Diogenes said this was air, Hippasus and Heraclitus say this is fire, and so on and so forth. This is supported by the CTMU, which makes the fundamental substance telesis, which is a metaphysical generalization of energy and information. But even if this conclusion is granted, we're pretty certain about this at this point, but Aristotle's agnostic. There's nevertheless more advanced causation going on. So Aristotle gives the example of a bed. The substance is wood, but the wood doesn't manufacture the bed. Something else does. So this is the second cause, that from which comes the beginning of the movement. So he shows how the formal cause is neglected in almost all other Greek philosophers' systems prior to Plato, except for kind of the Pythagoreans. So then he talks about Plato's theory of forms. So essentially, in Plato's system, the various sensible things are generated by what he calls ideas, and sensible things are named after these. The many possible things exist by participation in the things with the same name as they. So that there's a common form to all of the, there are probably hundreds of millions of cats on the planet, probably more actually, but they all almost like in their fundamental substance regress to like a cosmic cat almost. It's hard to totally explain. But full disclosure, I'm a Platonist. I've remarked in a few prior videos why I believe Plato's theory of forms to be essentially correct, and how this is supported by both the CTMU and advances in chaos theory, quantum mechanics, etc. So the one in Plato's system which is essentially God, is the form of all forms. It's the ultimate reality. So that which gives existence to that which gives existence to the material particular things. But nevertheless, Aristotle has an astute critique of Plato's theory. Aristotle demonstrates how that there are infinite forms required to generate all sensible things, because there are infinite patterns within these. But in the CTMU, I think this is a bug. This isn't a bug. It's a feature, because the generative union between the non-terminal domain, which is the world of forms, and the terminal domain, which is the world of appearances, is equivalent to essentially just infinity distributing over and collapsing into finitude. So the patterns within infinity, so you can see this in chaos theory with Lorentz and attractors, are structurally equivalent to what Plato would call the forms. Aristotle also demonstrates that the substance and that of which it is the substance cannot be set apart. And in this he's actually correct again. So in the CTMU, the non-terminal and terminal aspects of reality are distributively coupled at every strata of existence, including all the way down to the quantum, and all the way up to the global. The formal and material causes of things can't be set apart in the final analysis. Actually, none of the causes of things can be. So then the question is, should the whole in book 3, so that's book 1 and 2, but in book 3 the question he asks is, should the whole, which he calls the genera, the general thing, so should the genera of a thing or its constituent parts be considered the object's first principles? So am I my entirety of self, or am I the sum of all my parts, or am I something more, and which one is my ultimate identity? And I think this is actually asking the wrong question, because the CTMU says both. So remember, the stages of Hegel's dialectic are, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So the CTMU couples or synthesizes, if you will, the minimal and maximal structure into a monic substance which is self-dual. So So all of my constituent parts, as well as my whole, as well as myself, as well as my soul, are embedded within one monic substance. So then he goes on to ask, is the study of causes and substance the domain of one science or many science? And the answer, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, the answer is both. The most general science, which deals with such things, being, causation, etc., substance, is metaphysics, which means, higher order physics, which is also the name posthumously given to the treatise we're reading by Aristotle, of which the structure of metaphysics is the logos, is the CTMU, is the language by which the universe self-models, and thus there's no real distinction between the theory and the universe in the most general science. So that's why metaphysics is sometimes called first philosophy, because it's that from which all other disciplines are generated. But then the CTMU metaphysics factorizes into every domain of human knowledge, physics, biology, ethics, aesthetics, politics, economics, whatever, you name it, we have it. So again, the CTMU couples the minimal and maximal structure of, there's both the most general thing, which isn't really a point of knowledge, but it's if we think of knowledge as a pyramid, there's the bottom, which is, everything which can be known, there's the middle, which is, different disciplines, and then there's the top, which is the absolute truth, and is that which couples epistemology and ontology of knowing with being, and thus gives existence to the entire pyramid. But the pyramid itself, its substance, is both the pinnacle and the base, and it couples those two into one unified body of knowledge. So it couples minimal and maximal structure of epistemology. As Heraclitus says, a pre-Aristotelian philosopher, he says, from the one, from all things, one, and from the one, all things. So it's all within a unity. But then the question is, why can't we just that Aristotle raises next is, why can't we just have materialism? Why do we need to accept anything's existence aside from, perceptible things? So why is there even a need for the forms we posit, or the mathematical forms which the Pythagoreans believe in? So the CTMU says, because the material universe doesn't have enough structure or processes to bring itself into existence, it requires a model which explains not only the existence of perceptible things, but perception itself and the self-generativity of each of these. So this is why Chris Langan defines the CTMU actually as the minimal model induced from perception and cognition. So an emergent property of of this model, which is not set apart from its universe, is that the perceptible things must be generated by a higher order reality, which is analogous to what Plato would have called the world of form. So that's why we need both a material and a formal cause of things, as well as an efficient and final cause, but we'll get to those later. So that's book 3. So book 4, Aristotle makes the very astute observation, and his book is kind of all over the place because it's just getting to these very fundamental issues. But he makes the astute observation that being and unity reductively are the same. So one man and man are the same thing, and so too are existent man and man, or existent man and one man. So one existent man is the same as both of these. They're both. So the explanation for this is, one is the identity preserving relation. 2 times 1 equals 2, which is the same as existence of or reality, because 2 exists, it is 2. So the 1 is also the identity of reality, the identity of reality is the most general instantiation of the 1. Which is then God, which is God. So essentially, God is reality times 1. Is a nice way to think about it. And reality and being self-generates from unity, and vice versa. So all contraries are reducible to unity and plurality. Rest and movement, odd and even, hot and cold, limit and the unlimited, love which unites, and strife which divides. So in the CTMU, all dualities regress to this, but contraries are self-dual because the plurality is embedded within the unity, and then the boundary between the unity and the plurality is the boundary also containing both the unity and plurality. So it's all embedded within a meta-unity. So metaphysics is higher than natural philosophy because the latter deals only with nature, which is one part of being, while the latter deals with that in which nature is embedded, which is the entirety of being. So two-valued logic is the fundamental presumption of metaphysics. The same attribute cannot at the same time belong and not belong to the same subject in the same respect. So it is impossible for anyone to believe the same thing both to be and not to be. For to be or not to be, that is the question. For to do so denies being's very existence, and as such the existence of that which asks the question. It's self-negating. So as we are embedded in being, this amounts to a logical contradiction so long as we are. So it's impossible to be mistaken in the regard of two-valued logic. So the reason why the CTMU qualifies as absolute truth is because its logical structure can't be negated without negating the medium in which we're embedded. So the CTMU extends two-value, true/false logic to include the entirety of truth and exclude the entirety of falsehood within its model. So it's a generalization of two-valued logic, and this is called the containment or the reality principle, because everything that is true is within the CTMU universe, and everything that is false or non-existent is excluded from the universe. So be and not be have different meanings. But however, there's also a spectrum. We shouldn't say that that 2 and 3 are equally even, nor is he who thinks 4 things and who thinks 4 things are 5 is equally wrong with him who thinks that there are 1,000 things, that there are scales of this. Thus, there must be this proves then that there must be some truth to which the more true is nearer. So if I have 4 objects and one person says there are 5 objects and the other person says there are 1,000 objects, we'd say that the person who said there was 5 objects is more correct, which means that they're actually more closely approximating the objective truth. So then truth and untruth are necessarily the first principles from which to induce metaphysics. So I said we were gonna do book 5, but I'm actually gonna wrap this up right now. So in the next video we'll do in the next few videos. This is probably gonna be either 2 or 3 videos total. We're gonna go through all of the at least most of Metaphysics by Aristotle. But that's all for now. Thank you. Like and subscribe. Let the light shineth forth in the darkness. Peace.